Congratulations on your 2 Oscar nominations. I mean, how has it been just living in that duality of being in celebration, but also still dealing with the realities back home and the realities that many of your peers and family members are facing?
خب چه بخوایم چه نخواهیم درگیر این مسئله آدم میشه و نمیتونه تصور کنه اون اتفاقی که افتاده اونجا و حالا تو اینجا هستی برای یک چیزی که الان در حال حاضر برای مردم مسئله اصلی نیست. یعنی مردم همه توی شوک هستن، توی سوگواری هستن.
Of course, I automatically get involved. People are in a state of shock and mourning, and of course, I am also having my thoughts and mind there. And this is not to say that I don't have the energy, but when I have to participate in these celebrations, my spirits are not as high as they normally would be. People are in a state in which these days when they encounter one another as a form of greeting, they can no longer ask each other, how are you? It's this very simple question of how are you that they have to sort of omit. And now I have to sit and talk about film in this state. It's quite a duality.
I wanted to take it back a little bit just to, you know, you've been making films since the 90s. You've faced opposition for many, many years for many of your projects now, but what continues to drive you as an artist to continue to create art that is going to spark conversation, that could create change, and that is really invigorating people?
ببینید دو نوع فیلمسازی ما تو در دنیا داریم، فرق میکنه، هم تو تمام کشورهای دنیا به نوعی هستش. یک نوع فیلمساز که به دنبال این هستش که چی بسازه که تماشاگر رو
We only have
جذب
two types of filmmaking throughout the world. It doesn't matter what country. One type of filmmakers look and see what the audience wants to receive and how they can keep the audience entertained and keep them seated in the movie theater. Usually 95% of filmmakers throughout the world follow this rule, and there doesn't matter where they are, from Hollywood to Bollywood, you see that this happens. And then there is another 5% of filmmakers who say that they are going to make their own film and it is on the audience to find them and chase them. What matters is, as a filmmaker, what group you consider yourself belonging to, and what matters is that you as a filmmaker choose if you want to be in the 5% or in the 95%. When you make your choice of being in that 5%, what you make the films that you make come out of your own heart. And when you consider yourself a socially engaged filmmaker, especially, then what you are making resonates with what happens in the society. It is inspired by it and it reflects it. Many states want filmmakers to be part of the 95% group, not part of the 5% group, because in the 5%, the filmmakers make films that, especially in dictatorships, will cause a lot of problems for the governments. When you are a socially engaged filmmaker and you make your films based on what you think should be made, then you are reflecting the needs of your society, which are the same needs as yours as a filmmaker. There, I'm not making anything special, I'm not doing anything special, I'm just reflecting something that gives energy to myself, and therefore the energy goes back to the people. And I'm also doing so with honesty.
And I mean, speaking to that and choosing to be in that 5% and being a socially conscious filmmaker, when did that decision begin? At what age did you decide this is the direction I want to take with my films, and this is, I want to speak from my heart and from this experience?
من یادمه که دانشجو که بودم، دانشجوی رشته سینما کارگردانی اون موقع میخوندم، قرار شد که من یه فیلم کوتاه بسازم برای تلویزیون. خب تمام امکاناتم گرفتم و رفتم و با یه گروه بزرگی و با همه امکانات رفتیم فیلمو ساختیم. فیلم برداری تموم شد، اومدم نشستم مونتاژ کردم فیلمو. وقتی مونتاژ کردم تموم شد، به فیلم که نگاه کردم دیدم همه چیش درسته از نظر سینمایی، از نظر الفبای سینمایی، ولی اون فیلمی نیستش که انگار با سلایق من جور در بیاد. انگار من اصلا این فیلمو نساختم در حالی که من ساخته بودم.
When I was a film student, I was supposed to make a film, and I got a big crew and all the resources I needed. We made the film, we shot the film, and I sat down and edited the film. And after I was done, I realized that even though everything about this film was correct, everything was cinematically right, it was not the kind of film that matched my style, and it was not the kind of film that I liked. Back then, no one really knew me. I was still a student, but I realized that if I release this film, I will have to continue making films in this style. And so we also worked with negative films, and they had to go to the studio and what have you. At that moment, I decided that I am going to go to the studio. I'm going to steal the negatives and destroy them so that no one would ever get their hands on them. And that's exactly what I did. This is when I decided to make the films in that 5%, because I realized first the film has to satisfy me. It has to make me happy in order for it to make the audience happy.
بالاخره گیرش آوردم.
آدم ربایی جرم کمی نیست، اونم یه مأمور اطلاعاتی.
اقبال پا قشنگه، یادتون من؟ مریض! خدا تعالی اسمش پوشم هم نخورده. شما ببینید خودشه یا نه؟
I've heard this from other writers and filmmakers who say, you know, whenever there's just a lot going on in the world, whenever they are dealing with anything that they feel is emotionally traumatic, it's hard to write. It's hard to put pen to paper, put fingers to keys, and really create beautiful stories. I'm so curious, what drives you to continue to create these stories and create these projects, even with everything that you've already endured?
واقعا وقتی به درد میای حالا دیگه میتونی بنویسی. تا به درد نیای، یعنی احساس درد نکنی، اون موقع است که نمیتونی در مورد درد صحبت کنی. یعنی دقیقاً فکر کنم برعکس حرفیه که شما میزنید. انگار ببینید وقتی میگیم فیلمساز اجتماعی، یعنی تو ایده ها تو تمام اون چی که میخوای الهام بگیری از جامعه میگیری. جامعه داره یه دردی رو میکشه و تو اگر اون درد رو خودت هم نکشی.
In fact, it is exactly when you feel the pain when you can write it down. Until you don't feel the pain, you cannot talk about it. It might be, in fact, the reverse of what you just said. As a socially engaged filmmaker, unless you feel the pain that the society is feeling, you're not able to write anything, or I'm not. at least in myself, I felt that I first have to feel the pain, then I can write about it. Let's even imagine this film, it was just an accident. If they had not put me to prison before, if I had not spent 7 months, if I had not talked to my fellow prisoners and I hadn't heard their stories, perhaps this film would have never been made.
And was it kind of that, I'm assuming from what you're saying, that it was a very then cathartic experience to write this, to create it, and then now to be on the other side and see how others are reacting to it?
شاید ناخودآگاه چنین باشه، شاید به خاطر همینه میگم که اول فیلمساز باید خودش رو راضی کنه، تا خودش از اون اثرش راضی نباشه واقعا
Maybe unconsciously you did. That's why I say that first a filmmaker has to satisfy themselves before they can satisfy the audience. First you have to think about your own catharsis before you consider others. That is why I say when you're in the 5%, you first have to satisfy yourself before satisfying anyone else. And therefore the pain you go through is in order to cure or alleviate your own pain before you alleviate any others.
Your writing partner was recently arrested. You have a 1-year sentence awaiting you. I'm so curious, what continues that bravery within to say, when I'm done with this, I'm going back and I'm going to continue fighting and continue sharing my perspective and my experience?
من نمیدونم اسمشو شجاعت بیزارن یا نه، ولی من میگم تو انتخابتو کردی و میدونی در کجا.
I don't know if we can call it bravery, but I know where I live and under what government. I also know that such works of art come with a price that I have to pay. I also have the experience of living in prison with people who are completely anonymous and unknown, and when they can go through massive pain and no one will hear about it, but as soon as something is wrong with me, the entire world knows. So I'm not the one who is brave. They are the ones who are brave because they're going above and beyond, well beyond their own capacity to do anything they can. This conversation about bravery is really relative. Relative to what? I don't consider what I'm doing brave in comparison to what I've seen in prison.
I'm curious then, what are your thoughts on being this almost spokesperson for those who are still imprisoned or have been imprisoned, who aren't able to share their experience and are then able to, or I guess the world is able to see their experience through the projects that you're creating?
اینم باش مشکل دارم، نمیدونم اسم سخنگو رو میشه روش گذاشت یا نه. من فیلم خودم رو دارم میسازم، اون چی که احساس کردم میسازم.
This is also problematic to me. I don't know if we can call me a spokesperson. I don't know if I can consider myself that. But the thing is, I'm not a political filmmaker. I am a socially engaged filmmaker, and I make films that may have political topics. This is part of the previous answer that I forgot to say. I am a socially engaged filmmaker who makes films with the subject matter of the human being. Now, what he just said, my next project might be a film about the war. I am still a socially engaged filmmaker who makes a film about the war with humanity at its center. This does not make me a war filmmaker. So I'm neither the spokesperson of those who have been in war, nor the spokesperson of those who are in prison. I'm not anyone's spokesperson. I'm just making a film that I believe I need to make based on my own interpretations. And the audience can also have their own interpretation and interpretations. And the deeper they go into the film, the more they can see the roots of what I'm talking about.
And has it been then, Speaking off of that, has it been frustrating then just seeing the way that Western media has been kind of positioning you in that space as a spokesperson, given the subject matter of the film?
That doesn't matter to me. I do what I want to do. I do my own work, and the press and the media can have their own interpretation.
And there's themes of these characters battling between forgiveness and vengeance. I'm so curious for you, what do you hope that audiences will kind of take away seeing this grappling between the characters who shared this common experience but had very different methods of how they wanted to kind of begin their healing process from it all?
ببینید اون تمای بخشش انتقام به نظرم سطح رویی کاره. یعنی ما قصداً اینا رو گذاشتیم که تماشاگر بتونه قصه رو دنبال کنه و جلو بره. اما در نهایت اون چی که هدف من هستش فقط این مسئله نیستش و مسئله خشونت و خشونت پرهیزی هستش و اینکه واقعا این چرخه خشونت میخواد تداوم.
I really consider the themes of forgiveness and vengeance as themes on the surface, just so the audience can follow the plot. But what my actual goal is are the themes of violence and non-violence, and this question of whether violence is going to continue or if this cycle is going to end somewhere. With the massacre that happened in Iran in the last month, we can see that, in fact, this film is a very good document of the Iranian people being non-violent in spirit and the government wanting to inject violence into the society. For instance, an example from the film is when the group of former prisoners get their hands on their interrogator. As soon as they learn that the family of the interrogator is in trouble and needs help, they go and take the family to the hospital. When I was watching this film with audiences outside Iran, I realized that when it gets to that scene of the hospital, the audience is laughing. Until I asked someone once, but this is not a funny scene at all. Why are people laughing? And the person said, no, it is funny. They were there to kill the guy, now they're taking his family to the hospital. But if you show this film in Iran, I am sure that no one's going to laugh when it gets to that scene, because it's a very natural, obvious thing that people would do. This doesn't just happen in films. This is also true in reality, and we have various examples. For instance, when the 12-day war with Israel broke and a missile hit inside the Evin prison, one of the missiles just hit exactly in front of a ward called Ward 4, where I was also incarcerated. And a lot of prisoners just tried to save their lives, and they ran away after the gates and the walls collapsed. And when they got out, they saw that the missile had also destroyed the ward across from them, which was Ward 209, which is where the interrogators mostly were. And of course, it would be the interrogators who were coming out first, because there would be free and open walking on the corridors. And instead of saving their own lives and running away, the prisoners chose to stay and take the interrogators out of the rubble. These were people who had hurt them, but and now that they were stuck under the rubble, the prisoners were saving their lives. This is something that I heard from Mehdi Mahmoudian, who was there himself when this happened, and he had eyewitnessed it. It's a very good example of nonviolence in the people of Iran, and the exact opposite in its government, who wants to bring everything into violence. Therefore, socially engaged films are not far from reality. They look at what happens in the society and they depict it as closely as possible.